Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Cardo Gambles, and welcome back to the full card breakdown. This time for UFC 304, we are over in the UK for a phenomenal pay-per-view headlined by Belal Muhammad and Leon Edwards, as well as Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blaydes running it back. We have ourselves a phenomenal 14-fight card, one that is star-studded, a lot of good European prospects over there, and what should be a very, very fun fight card. I don't want to waste too much time. I want to dive into it. Before we do, though, hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, check out Coolbet and the other video I'll release at the end of this week on this channel here, as well as Establish the Run, where me and Brett Appley talk about our favorite DraftKings plays. I will cover DraftKings here, but in-depth premium content over there on Establish Run. Make sure to check that out. Aside from that, we're in the middle of a really, really fun UFC run here, so let's keep it going. A solid 5.77 unit week last week. We're going to keep it going here. Let's dive in. Get the fight night started with the 5-1 Shauna Bannon versus the 9-5 Alice Ardelean in what is a interesting short notice matchup. Shauna Bannon was supposed to go out there and fight Ravina Oliveira. In steps in Alice Ardelean, and to my surprise, she is someone who people may know a bit better than me. You know, I know all the jokes are going to come here, but she is a TikTok/OnlyFans model, someone who, you know, looking up her Instagram in front of the girlfriend may be a bit of a dangerous game, but someone who is definitely a bigger name to be added to the promotion, and someone who, you know, has fought some decent competition. Fought Weili Zhang, lost that one. Fought Dana Belbita. She's fought some decent level competition, but when she's typically going out there, she is typically the A side. And I think even in this matchup here, she's someone who's going to have a little bit of a following behind her, but typically the A side, typically getting layups, and in doing so is dominating her opponents. She is beating up regional scene soccer moms left and right, looking very dominant doing so, but when she gets to step up in competition, she tends to fall off and not do as well. And I don't want to necessarily call this one too much of a step of competition, but compared to those soccer moms, Shauna Bannon definitely is. She is someone who was highly touted, came in as the favorite in her debut. Now it's 5-1, lost her first matchup. She's someone who I do think has solid volume, is someone who is also not afraid to put herself out there publicly on social media, let's put it that way. But someone who also was crushing these regional scene cans, but we haven't really seen her face too much resistance. She is someone who is solid from top position, but can be taken down. Someone who has some pretty solid striking offense with a good amount of power, but can be very hittable on the feet as well. She's someone who just rates out as a low-level WMMA person here. I think both these girls are people who are not going to be fighting for titles anytime soon, but they can put on entertaining matchups. They can put defense aside and swing heavy, and hopefully make her a very fun matchup. In this matchup here, I'm going to favor Shauna Bannon, not only fighting on a full camp, but at least she's going out there and beating semi-competent level of competition, whereas Alice Ardelean is fighting the bottom of the barrel kind of stuff. I like Bannon's volume in this matchup. I think she's able to win the optics in that regard, and although Ardelean's going to be throwing with fight-ending intention, I think that Bannon's just the sharper striker. Ardelean might be able to have some success if she takes her down and gets on top position as well, as Bannon it can be stuck on bottom, but I do think she can go out there and win the optics. It's not a fight I want to be betting on too often, especially at this price tag, but I do trust Bannon to be able to fight through adversity more, be able to keep the range and win the striking optics in what is a pretty low level affair. DraftKings wise, we do not have salaries for Bannon or Ardelean. It is a pretty low level affair, so I don't want to get too involved on it. It is a fight that I think can go a multitude of ways. I don't like the fact that Bannon doesn't have the most offensive wrestling, and I don't like the overall skill set of Ardelean. So if it's a sloppy, low-level WMMA fight, maybe it has some potential, but on face value, at the time of filming this, there are no salaries for it, and it's not a fight I really want to prioritize. I guess if you're looking for some WMMA variance and you'll need an underdog this week, Ardelean with potential takedown upside could be a play, but considering it's a level of fight and I'm picking Bannon, this is not a fight I want too much of. I'd rather move on. Next up, 9-0 Mick Parkin versus 9-4-1 Lucas Brzeski. Mick Parkin, we all know him as the undefeated training partner of Tom Aspinall, but someone who has definitely not lived up to the expectation that comes with. Is a guy who has kind of fought really close in his battles recently, a really close fight against Muhammad Usman, and we saw how he did last week. A guy who just doesn't go out there and scream top-level talent. Don't get me wrong, he has all the tools. He's a very good technical striker. He actually has a pretty good offensive wrestling game and jiu-jitsu game, shall he go to it as well, and decent cardio, but he's fighting close with a lot of this low level of competition, and that's not something you really want to see over someone who should be this big top-level prospect. He is facing someone, Lucas Brzeski, who we have seen struggle a bit. Don't let the old pictures or regional scene tape fool you. He's not the same huge, shredded guy he was. He's a guy who's got a little bit of flub on him. I mean, so does Parkin, but a guy who is just going to go out there and look to be a fringe UFC talent. A ton of volume on the feet, a decent striker, but not the most power, not the most aggressive ground game. He can be taken down, his cardio does fail. He's just a low-level talent. But what he does have is consistent volume, decent output, decent technicality on the feet as well, and a style that can go out there and cause people problems. With that being said, I favor Mick Parkin almost everywhere here, although Parkin really struggles to separate himself in terms of optics. I see him as a better offensive wrestler. I see him as a better technical boxer of the two, bigger in size, and a guy who goes out there and is training with a better level of competition as well, being at that Aspinall camp, as well as it being in London. This is one where I do think Mick Parkin is also going to have the fans behind the judge behind him as well. And although it's a lower level fight, I want to say. I do think Mick Parkin has the ability to excel to that next level if he's able to go out there and utilize his skills to best advantage. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's doing exactly what he has to do in winning these fights, but I think there are certain fights where he can utilize different aspects of his game. I do think he has the more well-rounded skill set here and should win this fight, though, although I would love to see him live up to his potential. DraftKings-wise, though, this was ugly. Mick Parkin, 9.1K, has never exceeded 8.3K on DraftKings, does not really have the historic or box score to go out there and live off this 9.1K salary. Because of that, is going to be a pretty unowned option this top range. I think in theory he does have the wrestling path to victory and he does have the skill set to score well, but you can't trust him here. If you have a large portfolio, he could be a GPP play, but aside from that, not someone I'm really clicking on this in this top range. Brzeski, I guess, has that volume, but I do think there are some pretty live underdogs this week, and I'm not necessarily counting him as a guy who I think can go out there and score 120 points. I think if he wins, it's a close, high volume decision, similar to that Walter Walker one where he scored 74 points. I just don't like this fight as a whole. I'd rather go elsewhere. Next up, we have the 11-2-1 Sam Patterson versus the 10-4 Kiefer Crosbie, and another lower level affair where we do have the hometown guy here in Patterson be a large favorite. And I get the hype with Sam Patterson. Very violent finisher, solid frame for this division, and has the ability to go out there and land powerful shots on the feet. But as we saw in his last fight, also take his opponents to the ground and submit them. I think he does has a pretty solid grappling game as well. Now, along with that size, that could be a gift for him as well. He has that tall man's defense and he can be knocked out. We did take advantage of that, betting on Yanel Ajmoos in his first fight there. But now Sam Patterson here facing again Kiefer Crosbie. Crosbie, a guy who I don't rate out too well. Love his name. We got the Crosbie jersey over there in the corner. But Crosbie does have a solid offensive striking game. I mean, if you want to counter that, he does throw with head fighting intention, let's put it that way. But he can be countered, he can be hit, he can be taken down, spin on the ground, and he doesn't really have much of an offensive wrestling game himself. He pretty much is a power puncher who will brawl with decent cardio, and that's really all he's got. Doesn't have to worry about cardio in this matchup. Patterson's go balls to the wall and either go out there and get a finish or get finished early, which does have some fun implications on DraftKings. But when it comes to picking a winner, I do have to favor Sam Patterson here. Although Kiefer Crosbie can land that one shot, I mean, he does have power, Patterson can be hit. Aside from that minute possibility, Patterson, I think, has the chance to land a powerful shot of his own. He's going to have more volume, have more range, but also a much better submission game. He's going to have the ability to take it down to the mat, utilize that grappling that we seen him do last time. And I do think Kiefer Crosbie gives up his neck, gives up his back in a lot of these positions that Patterson can go out there and take advantage of. I'm picking Sam Patterson. It is a dangerous play considering his durability and the fact he can be hit. And Crosbie does swing hard, but I do think Patterson's being set up here to have success for his home crowd. I do think gets it done. On DraftKings, a very, very solid option. 9.3K. We just saw Sam Patterson go out there, score 98 against Blaydes in a spot where he did get a first round submission. I do think he get a submission here in this spot here. Crosby's a guy who gave up a good score in his losses as well. And Patterson's a guy who does seem to be really round one or bust. And I think because of that, at 9.3K, he is a very, very solid pay up option. I know Aspinall is going to get a lot of love, but him with real round one finish upside and grappling upside is someone I'm definitely looking to. Crosbie, if you need a punt play, is definitely there. 6.9K. If he wins, it's probably coming by first round knockout. I don't really see a path for him other than that. So it's definitely there. He's a punt play down low and probably one of my favorite punt plays of the slate. But truthfully, I will have more ownership in Patterson due to that round one grappling upside. Next up, and guys, I'm surprised to say this as well. This is what it says here on my order sheet. 11-0, Muhammad Mokaev at 19-6, Manel Kape. They have dropped this one to the early prelims, but this is a phenomenal fight. This fight honestly could be a headliner for a lot of shows here. It's two top-level guys in this 125 range, and guys who have headlined before. Muhammad Mokaev, undefeated fighter, just coming off of a slower pace win against Perez, but a guy who's really fast-lining his way to the top in front of his home crowd, a guy who is extremely young, only 23 years old and doing really well here in the UFC. He is a wrestler first. Phenomenal wrestling games, likes to go out there, shoot a million takedowns, look to establish control time. A solid submission game too, but really mostly control. He didn't go out there and submit Charles Johnson. He has been content to ride from top position. Not the most damaging shots either, but a guy who does have such good wrestling and top control, he can keep you there for a lot of the fight. On the feet, he does have some competent striking. Not the most volume, is not the most powerful guy either, because he just utilizes it to get to the clinch, get those takedowns, to which is his entire game. Manel Kape, also the top of the division, one of the best fighters we have at 125. I know a lot of people want to see him challenge for that belt there. He's a solid fighter to do so. Very, very explosive guy. A lot of power in his hands, and he often has struggled to utilize it, but also a guy who's been very, very powerful. Once he lets his hand go, he's got great cardio, great volume. It is going to be the better striker here. There's no doubt about it. Is also going to land the more powerful shots. He is someone who is very talented. He can scramble really good on the mat as well. I think he's a solid jiu-jitsu fighter who can land takedowns of his own, but in this case, it is going to be Mokaev who's going to be the aggressor, and we have seen Manel Kape put on his back before. The way this fight goes is I could very well see Muhammad Mokaev go out there, land 10, 15 takedowns, maybe not that many, but score very well, land the control shots. But it's going to be, I think, landing the more damaging shots. It's going to be him being the more physical fighter, in my opinion, and the guy who I think can compete enough in the grappling and then really excel on the feet when it comes to the powerful shots and winning those optics there as well. I do like Manel Kape this week. I'm surprised to say it. I thought I'd like the wrestler in Mokaev, but I just think Manel Kape has the ability to go out there and just win rounds with his power, be the more dynamic striker, scramble it from bottom position, and really force Mokaev to work. Mokaev is still young, has not fought someone really near the level of Kape, and I do think Kape is someone who can really go out there, utilize his physicality, his top-end experience, and win this fight. So give me the power, the striking, the technicality of Kape on the feet, winning those minutes, winning those optics. It is in London, so who knows if Mokaev gets that judges' scorecards, but I am going to pick Kape to get it done. DraftKings-wise, this one could be one where I'm picking Kape, but I do think that Mokaev could have more upside. He's a phenomenal scorer on DraftKings, averages 107 points in his wins, 121 against Gordon, 101 against Elliott, 119 against Johnson, 126 against Durden. This guy's been a phenomenal DraftKings scorer, and he's not winning this fight without scoring takedowns. At 8.4K, he is a phenomenal option in this mid-range because if he wins this fight, it's going to come with a lot of takedowns. In doing so, that could potentially harm the upside of Kape this week. I picked him to win, but if he's being taken down every 5 seconds, him winning optics could maybe only score 60, 70, 70, the same way he did against Dvorak, and potentially not score well in that matchup. I think the style of Mokaev kind of drains a lot of the upside for someone like Kape, so I'm picking Kape to win. I won't be getting too much on DraftKings. I'd almost rather the Mokaev side because at 8.4K, he has a phenomenal track history and ability to go out there and score a ton of points. I do like his wrestling upside, although the pick is Kape to get it done. Next up, 10-2 Oban Elliott versus the 11-4 Preston Parsons, and another fight between two fighters whose styles really translate well on DraftKings. Preston Parsons is a pressure-first fighter. His nickname is literally the pressure, and he's a guy who has been in the UFC and has proven the ability to go out there, push a heavy pace with not only volume on the feet, but a ton of takedown, and look to break his opponents. That's kind of what Oban Elliott wants to do as well. He's a wrestle-first kind of fighter, a guy who wants to go forward, break his opponents, but doesn't really have the cardio to do it, doesn't really land much damage, and is a lot more easily hit than a guy like Preston Parsons, and it feels like Oban Elliott may just be a Walmart version of Preston Parsons, putting it nicely. And Oban Elliott's not a guy who I really looked out and really looked to back before. I think I had a small shot on Val Woodburn at plus 350 against him. I thought Val Woodburn could land the powerful shots. He did. He almost finished Oban Elliott there, but Oban Elliott was able to utilize his takedowns and win that fight. It's going to be the opposite here. Parsons can have the better cardio. I think Parsons is the better pure wrestler, and Parsons has the ability to go out there and push the forwards pressure. I also think Parsons is the more, let's say, durable fighter who is maybe the more technical striker on the feet as well. And I do think Preston Parsons should be a larger favorite than he is now. I will be betting Preston Parsons. Probably by the time this video out, I will have a bet on him. I love his style. I think he just does everything Oban Elliott does a little bit better, and I like him to go out there and utilize that size, better wrestling technicality, and more damaging shots to go out there and break a guy like Oban Elliott down the stretch who we have seen tired before. Averaging 4.3 takedowns for 50 minutes is a beautiful sight here, and I do like Preston Parsons. Because of that, on DraftKings this week, 8.6K, Preston Parsons just went out there, scored 114 against a more dangerous guy, in my opinion, Matthew Semmelsberger, scored 108 against Evan Elder as well. He's someone who I really do like there, averaging a ton of takedowns, 7 in his last fight, 4 in the fight against Elder there. A guy who will go forward, look to break his opponent, a ton of volume, and will not stop, so I do like him at 8.6K. Oban Elliott, how does he win this fight? Maybe he wins some wrestling exchanges. He does have a decent box score, scoring 102, but hardest opponent he's fought, a guy who wants to take him down as well. I don't really see much viability for Oban Elliott because of the high variance matchup, potential reversal, potential takedowns. He is a viable play at 7.6K. I just like other underdogs this week that I won't be getting to him too often. The pick is Preston Parsons, and I do think he gets it done this weekend. Next up, 15-6 Modestas Bukauskas versus the 17-7 Marcin Prachnio, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this fight because truthfully, it's a slower pace striking fight that I do not want to have much money on because it's a lower level striking affair and not the one that translates best to DraftKings. And because of that, doesn't warrant much of my attention. I think Bukauskas, even though this is horrible to say, maybe the more reliable fighter. He's a guy who will utilize kicks in this range. He's someone who's, yes, has fought really good level of competition and lost to them, but can hold his own, has solid volume from distance, and I do think is somebody who can keep a better cardio pace on the stretch. Marcin Prachnio started off his career being knocked out in the first round of every one of those fights. He's improved a bit, but is still extremely hittable. Chin is questionable, cardio is definitely questionable, and he's going to be the primary boxer in this matchup. With the kicking from the outside from Modestas Bukauskas, I do think that limits the upside of Prachnio, and I do think Bukauskas decides what range he wants to fight in, winning this fight from a volume perspective, and he's my pick to win. But because of that style, it does not always translate well to DraftKings. 8.5K, Bukauskas has never scored above 97 points, and which the only time he scored 90 was in a first round finish win. In his 2 decision wins in the UFC, I'm not making this up, 51 points and 56 points is not the best DraftKings score. I think he fights a similar game plan, utilizing those kicks, not much takedown upside, is a guy who just wants a pitter-patter on the outside. Marcin Prachnio, I guess, is someone who can have some upside, with some finish upside, with some power in his hand. We have seen people blitz Bukauskas and have success, but truthfully, not a fight I want too much ownership in. I think it's a striking affair, one where Bukauskas determines the range with his kicks and wins the fight based on volume, but maybe not my favorite fight in the card, especially not from a DraftKings perspective. and see maybe this fight a little more. We do have ourselves a little wrestling match here, 9-1 Loughran versus the 10-3 Jake Hadley, and I think this is a really fun fight. I have been historically higher on Jake Hadley than I probably should have. I think he's a solid grappling game. He's a guy who can go out there and land takedowns of his own right. Maybe not the best striker, but a guy who I think can be competent to fight at this UFC level. Is a guy who I do think has a solid skill set and I think can win fights. Now, has he done it recently? No, he's run into a hot Charles Johnson and couldn't finish Cody Durden in that matchup, but which I was there live for both those fights. Actually, I've seen Jake Hadley a couple times now and he's let me down both times, but I do think he's a solid fighter. I think he has the better pure jiu-jitsu in this matchup, but he just has a tough opponent in front of him. The forward pressure of Loughran was what I love most about him. He is a Preston Parsons type fighter, a guy who will go forward, look to push you against the cage and take you down. Phenomenal wrestling pace, solid striking and offensive pressure pace on the feet as well, but a guy who averages over 2.5 takedowns in 50 minutes, will look to break you with his wrestling and look to take you down over and over again. He got some solid physicality to take you down and a solid amount of cardio to be able to do that for the entire fight. Because of that, he's someone who I want to back long term. I like his skill set and I will be cheering for him. And against a guy Jake Hadley, who yes is a phenomenal jiu-jitsu practitioner, but a guy who defends takedowns at less than 50% here in the UFC, it's a dangerous matchup for him. Of course, there's a chance that Hadley goes out there and catches a submission, but the guy with better cardio, more takedown upside, I think the better forward pressure and minute winning ability on the feet as well is he guy here in Loughran, and I am picking him to win because of that. No salaries on DraftKings, but that style and really both their paths to victory make me think that this is a fight I do want to have on DraftKings. Loughran can shoot takedowns, can look to go out there and break a guy here, and Jake Hadley, and with that pace, with that forward pressure, with that upside, I'll definitely be looking to target him, especially if he slots into this 8.9K range, to which he could here on DraftKings. I'll definitely look to play him. Him and Parsons have so much wrestling upside that I want to get to him. Flip side of things, though, I do think that Hadley's path to victory is catching a neck, catching a limb here, and submitting him on the mat. I don't think he wins a decision too often. Because of that, I think he's way more viable than Elliott. And I think in this bottom range, Hadley is someone who I could go to in GPP formats due to that finishing upside. I'm not picking him to win, but it should be a very action-packed fight where finishes can materialize both sides, and I do think that Jake Hadley does have some finish upside in this match, maybe more than his line entails. So I want this fight both sides of DraftKings. However, the pick is Loughran, and I do think he gets it done. Next up, 14-6 Molly Mccann versus the 9-4-1 Brasil. Yes, Meatball Molly Mccann is back in London, and she's fighting, and they didn't think you would give her a good opponent here, right? You couldn't think they were going to give her some top 15 girl. And they gave her a girl in Brasil, a girl who I've been particularly higher on than I should have been, but a girl who has not had a lot of success here in the UFC. Yes, she beat Shauna Bannon, but dominated by Denise Gomez. Did not look good against Loma Lookboonmee either in that matchup, and just a fighter who hasn't really panned out. She is a solid striker on the feet with decent kickboxing, decent technicality, and some solid power, but a girl who can be out-muscled, can be taken down, can be pounded out from top position as well, and a girl who just doesn't really thrive as like a bully. She's someone who can win these technical kickboxing affairs, but if it gets dirty, if it gets to the clinch, she's someone who I don't think exceeds too much those expectations. And I do think Molly Mccann is someone who's the opposite. Molly Mccann wants to make it dirty. She wants to throw spinning elbows. She wants to get in your face. She wants to be a brute. She wants to be a meatball is what she wants to be. And she wants to go out there and just throw within boxing range, throw technicality to the wind, and she is someone who's also looking to show out that wrestling recently. She's someone who's just set up for success here in front of this home crowd. Molly Mccann is someone who I think is going to thrive in those clinch situations, be the more physical fighter, have wrestling upside, but also in those close range, I like her power, I like her spinning elbows, and we have seen Brasil hit hurt before. So this seems like a fight where Molly McCann's primed to have success. I don't really think that McCann will allow Brasil to fight from distance this whole time. So from this home crowd, I think Molly McCann's set up here to win. And whether it be with takedowns, whether it be with closing the distance and getting dirty and being a meatball and winning that fight that way, I think she can win a multitude of ways. And I'm agreeing with her price tag. DraftKings though, 9.2K, I like her upside. She is no stranger to high score wins. Her last 3 wins scored 119, 110, 109. Phenomenal scorer, and she is someone who not only has a ton of finishing potential, but throwing in that wrestling upside against a weaker opponent. I do think at 9.2K, she could be that contrarian play this week. Maybe a lot of people go to her, maybe she won't be contrarian, but I like her finish upside. I think similar to Patterson, she has wrestling and round 1 upside, and she is someone who potentially maybe has more decision upside than someone like Patterson. So $100 cheaper, I like her way more than Parkin. I like her more than a lot of people in this range here. Of course, it's going to be hard to go out there and outscore people like Aspinall and Loughran and Parsons, who we've talked about already, but she's someone who definitely slots up there as one of my favorite options this week. I do think she gets it on a high clip. I do like her here. Brasil, almost zero ownership of her, $7,000. She's not finishing McCann, in my opinion. She's not submitting her. Her path to victory is a low-pace striking affair, which I don't think she gets in London. So no Brasil, all McCann this week. I'm on the meatball train. I think she utilizes that grappling. I think she scored very well, and she's one of my favorite options in this top range. And the prelim headliner, the 19-6 Nathaniel Wood, 28-15 Daniel Pineda. We say it every time Pineda fights, 100% finish rate, 28 wins, all of them coming by finish. And typically against a guy here, Nathaniel Wood, who, it can be hit, can be knocked down, it is going to usually struggle up in weight. It seems like a spot where Daniel Pineda could look to keep that 100% finish rate going, but it's an uphill battle. We look at just the optics of this matchup with a younger fighter here in Wood, who has way more decision upside, the way better wrestler in my opinion, a guy who is also the crisper striker on the feet. I just think he's going to have way more success here against an aging guy, Daniel Pineda. And although Pineda has knockout upside, potential submission upside, being the pit he is, a very dangerous fighter, the 8-year younger Wood, who is only an inch shorter here in this matchup, which isn't really the case for him typically, is going to have all the upside here. And that's why he is the biggest favorite on the entire card. He is someone who I think is going to have the way cleaner striking, is able to dictate where this fight takes place, and have the cardio to go all 50 minutes. I mean, Daniel Pineda is looking for a way out in that third round, a lot of those spots. And I do think Nathaniel Wood is able to deliver that to him, whether it be with the wrestling, whether it be with the solid power in the feet as well, as long as Wood is able to keep his consciousness. Truly, you should win this fight any way here. He is someone who is just the way better technical minute winner, way better cardio on the stretch, and a guy who is fighting in front of that home crowd, I do think gets it done. DraftKings wise though, you just have to question yourself, is he worth it at 9.5k? He's only gone over 100 points once since 2019, and that was a 108 point win over Jourdain, typically scoring 86 against Feely in a close fight there, 77 against Rosa, 89 against Castaneda. Is that enough at 9.5k? That is truly the question, and typically I'd say no, but against Pineda, a guy who can be finished, I do think he definitely has upside. I think he's a solid contrarian play in the top range. However, I still think I like Aspinall more. I still think I like Mccann more, and I do want to get to Loughran and Parsons. So I really see Nathaniel Wood as a pivot play in the top range and a contrarian play in a range that where he shouldn't be too popular. If you have a larger portfolio, play him, but I would rather take the risk that Pineda survives the first and maybe second round and Wood gets a later finish and only scores 90 points than really playing him and hoping he goes out there and gets a first round finish. I think that Aspinall, Patterson, Mccann all have more finish upside, and I do think that Parsons and Loughran have way more wrestling upside. So I'm staying away from Wood more than I expected to this week. However, I do think he's a solid play in the top range, especially in cash. He should win this fight at a very high clip. Pineda, similar to Crosbie, is a punt play. He's not winning this fight unless he's getting a first round knockout. I don't think he does, but in case you think you do, his last two hits scored 102 and 137. So punt play, I don't think he gets it, so I'm not playing too much. But if you're looking to be for a Hail Mary this weekend, he certainly has that written all over him. However, give me Nathaniel Wood. On to the main card, 19-3 Arnold Allen, 15-3 Giga Chikadze. Fun fight, and I think when we look at it from pure kickboxing standards, Giga Chikadze is one of the best kickboxers in the division. Very solid fighter, is able to go out there, land a Giga kick, good body work, great work from range, but he got his ass beat by Calvin Kattar. He got whooped. Calvin Kattar channeled all that Max Holloway energy and unleashed it on a guy like Giga Chikadze that week. You add in the fact that I think Giga's a guy who can be taken down, who is getting up there in age. There are reasons to suspect why Giga Chikadze is underdog in this matchup. If this was 2 years ago, he wouldn't be. Giga Chikadze was highly valued, a guy who people loved and thought he would go out there and challenge Max Holloway. But truthfully, a guy who we've seen take a lot of damage, and a guy who we've learned has a lot of flaws, whether it be in the ground game, whether it be with taking damaging shots, not wearing it too well, and facing this up-and-coming, hungry, but facing this young, hungry, up-and-coming here in Arnold Allen, whose only losses are to the best of the best, it seems like an interesting matchup here. It could be a turning of the tides here, and a guy in Arnold Allen who has got phenomenal durability, but will crash the pocket, will throw the fighting attention, who will be a brute, be a much dirtier boxer than somebody like Chikadze, who is so technical. I do like Arnold Allen. I think he's a fun fighter to watch. I think he wants to go out there, get the finish. That swarm he had against Dan Hooker was very memorable for me. He's very fun to watch, but he also has that wrestling upside. We have seen Giga Chikadze taking it down. Arnold Allen is someone who I think has a more versatile skill set, is a very strong physical fighter, and I just think for all those reasons, he is going to pick to win. Do I think he wins at a minus 260 price tag? Maybe not. I think Giga Chikadze can definitely compete in the striking, and this could look like a hindsight weird pick to make here. I just think Allen has way more going for him right now. I think he's durable enough to withstand the damage. I think he can go forward, utilize the clinch, potential takedown upside as well, and look to land damage on Giga, who has not been wearing it that well recently. So give me a guy here, Arnold Allen, a very fun fighter to watch. I do think he's continues to climb here, but interesting matchup. Giga Chikadze has shown to be very, very durable. Arnold Allen has only scored above 100 points once, and that was in that Dan Hooker fight, like I mentioned. But on a card where I've talked about the round one upside of Mccann and Patterson, the pure domination of Wood and Aspinall, and the wrestling upside of Parsons and Loughran, I'm not getting to Arnold Allen as much as I expected to either. I think more times than not, he wins a decision, whether it be with damage, wrestling upside. He is someone who I don't think has the same finish upside as people around him, so I won't be getting to it too often. Other than that, Chikadze, I don't see him getting a finish. There's not much wrestling upside, so at 7.2K, not getting a kick of that much either. He is a solid option down below because I don't think he should be as cheap as he is listed here, but someone who I'm not picking to win and someone who I don't think has much DraftKings equity, so not getting to him here. The pick is Arnold Allen. I do think there's many ways he's going to get done, and let's just go hope he goes out there and puts on a good show. Next up, recently elevated to the main card, 10-1, Christian Leroy Duncan versus the 15-5 Gregory Rodrigues. I love this fight, and so far my only bet of the card, I will be adding Preston Parsons. I mentioned that already, but Christian Leroy Duncan, 10-1 is a guy I'm going with this weekend. Let me explain everything right now. Gregory Rodrigues is a phenomenal fighter. Great jiu-jitsu game, although he doesn't use it. A ton of power in the feet and is a very, very good finisher. I think he's got a ton of athleticism to really cause anybody problems here. But in a matchup in the UK against a guy Christian Leroy Duncan, who is going to be the far more technical striker, I just think Duncan has more paths to get it done. We have seen Gregory Rodrigues look to stand and bang in the past. I just think Duncan has the ability to pick apart opponents. He makes good reads as the fight goes on, and he's just a much more durable fighter. Rodrigues wants to stand and bang. He's hittable, he can be finished, and Christian Leroy Duncan has power in his hands, he can put people down, and I just think he can take more of a beating in this spot here and look to make his reads as the fight goes on. He's got good distance management, good kicks, good clinch work as well, and I do think he can go out there and cause problems. Now, if Gregory Rodrigues decides to go D1 wrestler, that could be a different problem, but I haven't really seen that from Gregory Rodrigues, and Christian Leroy Duncan looks to have some solid physicality in his own right. I just favor Duncan in the striking. I favor him in the technicality aspect of the minute-winning opportunities, but also in the durability. I think over 15 minutes, not only can Duncan win the minutes, but he can also go out there and have way more finishing upside, in my opinion, be the more competent striker, and he is my pick to win. Minus 125 on Christian Leroy Duncan. I think he gets it done in front of his home crowd. I think he's a fun fighter to watch, and because of that, because of the dynamic of this fight, this is a solid one on DraftKings. 8.3K, Christian Leroy Duncan has scored pretty well in his last two wins, scored 107, 119. Phenomenal scores there, both of them second round knockouts, and I do think that is a clear path to victory here against Rodrigues, so Duncan does have a ton of striking and finish upside 8.3K. But like I said, I don't think Gregory Rodrigues wins unless he employs that pure wrestling jiu-jitsu practitioner upside. And, he hasn't done it. He's gotten purely KOs in the UFC, and he hasn't really, he hasn't really done it that often. However, I think that is his major path to victory. So if he does become a round one if he does become a D1 wrestler here, he could be viable. But 7.9K, a guy who I do think has a ton of GPP upside. I'm picking Duncan, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm probably going more towards Duncan this week. Should be a fun fight. Give me CLD in front of the home crowd. And Patty the Batty time, 21-3 Patty Pimblett versus the 32-15-1 Bobby Green. It's a Patty Pimblett fight. Always fun to watch. Always fun to watch him go from being a larger man to being absolutely shredded. A fun fighter who has gotten a lot of things for him, and you have to think that's going to continue to go for him here in England in front of his home crowd. A place where he's beloved, a place where he's able to start his career and look pretty good doing so. There's no doubt that Bobby Green's a better striker. He's got great ability to make reads. He's got good striking defense on the feet as well, and he showed that absolutely decimating Jim Miller last time. And I do think that in order to have success here, Patty Pimblett's either have to go out there, knock him out, or utilize that wrestling. And he better be working on it because Bobby Green himself has got pretty good takedown defense. But it's just a really weird fight dynamic. I completely understand everyone taking a shot on Bobby Green. I think he has way more striking upside. We've seen Patty go out there, absorb a ton of damage. But when it comes down to it, is just Patty Pimblett, with all the wrestling upside he has, with the power and finish upside he has on the feet as well, in my opinion, and the crowd behind him, and the judges behind him, as we've seen, I don't think I could pick against him here. I understand, maybe that's a biased pick, it's a stupid pick going with my hypothesis instead of my read on the fight, but for as much as Green has those striking exchanges, Patty Pimblett can go out there, he's a very solid grappler, shall hit the mat, he's a guy who can go out there, land with fighting intention, land with powerful shots, and we have seen Bobby Green hurt before, but also just every time he lands, the crowd's gonna go crazy. We've seen the judges give him decisions before. I just have to pick Patty Pimblett. Would I put money on that? I don't think I'll get there unless the money continues to flood in here on Bobby Green. But I think I am going to have to go with Patty the Batty here. DraftKings-wise, though, fight right in the middle. I don't think Green's winning this unless it's a striking decision. And honestly, he's really surprised. He scored really well in his last 5 wins, scoring. Honestly, he's impressed me. I'm actually shocked by how well he has scored here on DraftKings, but because I see King as someone who is a primary striker, doesn't have much wrestling upside. I don't expect him to wrestle here, I don't expect to get a finish. So he has a ton of volume, and I think he can win this fight. So at 8.2K, maybe he is more a viable play than I expect him to be at 8.2K. I kind of prefer the Patty the Batty side here. 8K, scored 112 to the last one. I don't think he wins this fight without wrestling, without potential finish upside. I think it's a solid 8K flyer. However, I think sounds like both these guys are solid options, whether it be the volume of King on the feet or the wrestling of Patty the Batty and potential finish upside. I think it's a fight that could score well on DraftKings. Give me Patty the Batty, potential some home cooking to get it done. But what is a very close and fun fight, should be an entertaining one. Co-main event time, let's talk about some belts here. Interim heavyweight championship, 14-3, Tom Aspinall, 18-4, Curtis Blaydes. Rematch, and a much wider line at that. Last time they fought, it was very close. Tom Aspinall got hurt right away. Curtis Blaydes got the victory. And since then, Aspinall's gone on and won the interim championship, whereas Curtis Blaydes has been up and down. He got a solid elbow win last time against Almeida after being taken down 8 times. But Curtis Blaydes remains the same. The guy is a phenomenal wrestler, is maybe one of the best wrestlers we've seen in this heavyweight division. Solid boxing, but a guy who just struggled mentally. Not engaging at times, not wrestling where he should. Doesn't have the best submission game to always get people out there either. And is a guy who just has either made mistakes in the cage, not wrestling where he should have, or just been tentative to engage. And I think that there are mental issues around him. This is UFC 5, we control the fighters. Curtis Blaydes has a phenomenal takedown game, very good top pressure, very good elbows, and I think he could be very dangerous. But at this point in time, I understand why Tom Aspinall is the favorite here. A guy who's proven with very quick hands is going to be the more powerful, proven kickboxer on the feet, and a guy who we've seen Curtis Blaydes knocked out before. Tom Aspinall seemed to be pretty durable. It seemed like Tom Aspinall will be winning those striking exchanges, but we have never seen Aspinall extended. Although Aspinall's a phenomenal jiu-jitsu practitioner, we've never seen him off his back, and Curtis Blaydes can definitely put him there. I just think this fight could be close in the line and tails. Now, gun to my head, I picked Tom Aspinall. I've already listed the reasons why I think he's better here. I think he has the better technical striking, more power on the feet, better durability, better pure jiu-jitsu game, and maybe he's able to put Curtis Blaydes on his back as well. But there are so many unanswered questions about Tom Aspinall still. How is he off his back? How is he in that third round? How is he when he has to face adversity? Because that's a pretty dominant win so far. There's a lot of questions to be answered. And because of that, I don't think I'll be paying that huge price tag on Aspinall this week. I'm cheering for him. I think he has all the skill sets to get done. But I don't know if I'll be paying a huge chalk price tag or parlaying him on the money line. DraftKings-wise, though, I have a lot of interest in this fight. 9.4K, Tom Aspinall is a phenomenal fighter. Scored 129 before, 104. Averages over 100 points in all his wins, scores very, very well in doing so. A lot of first-round finishes. All his fights, except for one so far in the UFC, ended that very first round. Very dangerous. And at 9.4K, he's a ton of first-round finish upside, ton of power upside. To score just as well as he did last time. 104 against Pavlovich. I think he has that same upside, same ceiling. And that's why at 9.4K, can be a very solid option. I love Tom Aspinall this week. But I want to talk about Curtis Blaydes. 6.8K, yes, massive underdog. I completely get it. But we get to see Aspinall tested. What happens if Aspinall's off his back? What happens if he's tired in that second round? We still do not know. So I will definitely be playing some Curtis Blaydes at 6.8K. Scored 172 against Volkov, 128 against Jarekimov. Scored 116 last time against Aspinall, although we won't count that. He has wrestling upside, proven cardio in those third rounds. He's a guy who I think can really challenge Aspinall as the fight gets extended. And yes, I picked Aspinall. I'll have a ton of him at 9.4K. But I will have some ownership of Curtis Blaydes at 6.8. Very fun fighter to watch, ton of wrestling upside. Should be a phenomenal fight. However, maybe the line is a bit wide here. I'm picking Aspinall, but I do think Curtis Blaydes may put up more of a fight than we anticipate this weekend. That was kind of my main event. This is the true main event, though. 22-3, Leon Edwards. 23-3, Bilal Muhammad. I'll be honest, not the biggest fan of both these fighters. I was lucky enough to be there live in Salt Lake City and watch that Edwards get that knockout, but he was losing that fight. I thought he lost the second Usman fight, or third Usman fight, sorry. I think I even picked Colby against him, and Colby didn't show up. He hasn't really excelled too much as a champion, in my opinion. And now he's going to get here in Bilal Muhammad, who I have not been that high on either. Yes, Bilal Muhammad's made those improvements. He's a phenomenal wrestler. He has shown that some pressure, but does not have the best striking, is not a finisher by all means at all, but has gotten some, I don't want to say luck, but has gotten some opportunistic chances to get where he is now, with that injury to Gilbert Burns, some hyped up prospects who weren't really think they are. Bilal Muhammad has been able to utilize that solid wrestling pace to get where he is. And trust me, I love my wrestlers, but he is just a guy who wants to go out there and hold you for 25 minutes. He doesn't look to advance position, doesn't look to get that finish. And maybe being a bit harsh on him, but these are two fighters who both just want to win technically their own way, whether it be the control of Bilal Muhammad on the mat or the distance striking of Leon Edwards. Neither of them stand out too much for me, so maybe not my favorite fight. But when it comes down to it, another fight where I think the line is wide. I think Bilal Muhammad could definitely push the pace, look to land takedowns, look to really control Leon Edwards. We saw Usman have success with the takedowns. Maybe this line is wide. But gun to my head, I'm picking Leon Edwards. Much better counter striker. He was a much larger favorite last time in their matchup. He is someone who I do think should be favored, proven at this level, makes a ton of reads as the fight goes on. Bilal Muhammad is certainly hittable on the feet. I am going to pick Leon Edwards here, although I do agree the line is wide. I do not want any part of this from a betting perspective. I'm going to sit back and watch it. Hopefully it does deliver as a great fight. DraftKings-wise, though, you have to kind of talk about it. Leon Edwards at 8.8K, I don't think I'm getting to him. He has yet to score over 100 points in 2018. Is mostly a decision machine, and he's not going to be landing takedowns in this matchup either, so he's going to be a guy who's going to rely on volume, and he doesn't really land the most volume. He's a technical kickboxer who's okay to work the outside, who's going to want to keep Bilal Muhammad off of him, and for that reason, I don't think I'll be playing him at 8.8K too often, instead of Parsons, Loughran, Mccann, Patterson, Aspinall, people we've talked about already. So I'm not getting too often. I kind of like Belal Muhammad this week, 7.4K. He has shown some really solid scores recently. 102 against Brady, 107 against Loughran, 132 against Thompson. He has 5 rounds to work. He's going to shoot a ton of takedowns because he's not winning this fight without it. I think he maybe has a better chance to win the line of tails. And at 7.4K, his durability is showing he can go 5 rounds. I think he's a solid floor and has a ton of opportunities to go out there and land takedowns. Yes, Edwards' takedown defense is good, but if Muhammad wins, he's scoring a ton of takedowns, he's scoring pretty well. So I do not mind Belal Muhammad. I kind of like him more from DraftKings perspective, but gun to my head, I am picking Leon Edwards, and that is the entire fight card. That's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. And quickly running through my quick picks, taking Leon Edwards, Tom Aspinall, Paddy Pimblett, Christian Leroy Duncan, Arnold Allen, Nathaniel Wood, Molly McCann, Kayla Loughran, Modestus Bukauskas, Preston Parsons, Manel Kape, Sam Patterson, Mick Parkin, and Shauna Bannon. DraftKings wise, a ton of solid options up top. Aspinall, Patterson, I think are solid options at the top range, but I really do like Molly McCann this week as a hopefully leverage spot in this top range away from those top big names. I love Loughran. I love Parsons. Those are my favorite guys who go up there and utilize the wrestling ability. Mokaev also has that same wrestling upside, so I will be getting to an 8.4K. In the mid-range, though, Duncan versus Rodrigues, Green versus Pimblett, both great fights to target from both sides. Underdog-wise, Belal Muhammad's a guy I'll be getting to. I think Curtis Blaydes deserves some respect. I'll be looking to play him as well. As well, a guy Manel Kape, who I do think has some potential upside to win their fight. Reignmakers-wise, my favorite plays in the slate, Aspinall, Patterson, McCann, Loughran, Parsons. Betting-wise, I've already locked in Christian Leroy Duncan. I will be adding Preston Parkins, but nothing else added yet. Check me out on Twitter at GamblesGordo and use code Gordo on CoolBet when you see my video later this week on the CoolBet channel. I'll be playing a lot of stuff, certainly some spots stick out, so be sure to check me out there. Everything should be posted by Friday. And also be sure to check out Established to run for the rest of my full card DraftKings premium show breakdowns. But that's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, show some love. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Enjoy the card, guys, and let's make some money.